Welcome again. It has certainly been a while, and on the topic of time flying, I checked a release date before I started recording this video, and it has been exactly 15 years since the famous Kamigawa block was first released in October 2004. I do have fond memories of Michiko Konda. I remember a time when she wasn't worth the paper she was waving her paper fan on, so it's amazing what time and a new format can do to a card. Michiko was famously referred to as the ex-wife EDH deck because no matter what you did, she'd at least take half. So the theme with my Michiko Konda EDH deck is really reusing and recycling. So mono white is famous for having problems with things like card draw, card advantage. It's really about, white weenie amassing forces kind of thing. But Michiko is a unique card. Unique general, I should say, in that she prompts a different kind of deck build. So overcoming the white card draw deficiencies, the other side of the wagon is trying to reuse your graveyard and bring back cards that give you full value with your deck, and hopefully buffer up that life total before you get withered down too deeply. So I'm just going to start with the non-basic land, Secluded Steppe, Mistveiled Plains, which really is on point with the reusing, recycling theme. Majoring Network, I've got in here, not a great land. Obviously, decks that have a lot of mono ramp resources wouldn't use this card, but in mono white, you really got to take every bit of advantage that you can. I like it because it works, it has synergy with some cards that I'm going to show. And the key land is Emeria, the Sky Ruin. So at the beginning of your upkeep, if you control 7 or more planes, return target creature card from your graveyard to the battlefield. So being a land as well, it's going to be impervious to most strategies, as most decks don't often account for a land being critical to your gameplay. And beginning with the artifact list, so Expedition Map is crucial here. So the number one target is going to be Emeria, the Sky Ruin. You do have to be wary of strip mines and those sorts of things, and you do need that 7 planes payment before it's actually effective. But Expedition Map is good early game and late game. Implement of Improvement, useful in this deck, especially for the card draw mechanism, which I will get to shortly. Dispeller's Capsule for destroying artifacts or enchantments. Wayfarer's Bauble for some early game land ramp, and some mana fixing with Marble Diamond, Mind Stone. Urza's Tome, as I will display shortly, is kind of critical to get cards into your graveyard. Being able to dump those expensive creature cards or expensive enchantment cards early game when you can't really cast them and then bring them back. Urza's Tome is really good for getting extra value in allowing you to draw a card. On top of doing that, Thunderstaff. So Thunderstaff is here for a bit of synergy with Michiko Konda, and by synergy I mean it mitigates some damage. So whenever a creature would deal combat damage to you, prevent one of that damage. So with Michiko, you really want to encourage people to attack you, but you don't want to be taking the full extent of their wrath. So Thunderstaff is just one of the permanents that can help with that strategy. Hedron Archive for card draw. And 2 cards I've got here, they do similar things, although the one on my left is far better than the one on the right. But Farsight Mask, Angel Heart Vial, both 5 mana. So Farsight Mask, whenever a source an opponent controls deals damage to you, if it's untapped, you may draw a card. So great card advantage there. And Angel Heart Vial, similar thing, not as good though, but whenever you're dealt damage, put that many charge counters on Angel Heart Vial. Pay 2 mana, remove 4 charge counters from Angel Heart Vial, you gain 2 life and draw a card. So card advantage with those 2 artifacts there. So moving into the creature base, the curve goes from really low end to really high end, as we'll see. The aim is to ideally get your Urza's Tome down and dump those high end creatures into the graveyard and bring them back late game. While the early game creatures are really about mitigating and keeping you alive while dealing with some other permanents that hit the battlefield. So we'll start with Kamiya False Hope, also from the Kamigawa set. If it's on the battlefield, you can sacrifice it, prevent all combat damage that will be dealt this turn. So if you can recur this bad boy, that's going to make you enemy number 1 in a lot of ways. I've got Hopeful Eidolon, just a 1/1 lifelink spirit that can that also has a bestow ability. So a bit of passive life gain with Impassioned Orator. Also with Suitor Priest, who does something similar, but whenever a creature enters the battlefield under an opponent's control, you may have that player lose 1 life. So he does double things. They're Restoration Specialist. The sack ability, so sacking creatures that can sack themselves are going to be very important for this deck, which I'll get to. But Restoration Specialist is also part of the recycling theme in that she can bring back an artifact and an enchantment from your graveyard to your hand. So some good combo looping there if you can get it working. Keening Apparition and Kami of Ancient Law. So they both spirits, interestingly enough, 2/2. They do the same thing in that they can self-sacrifice to destroy target enchantment. Grateful Apparition, the only proliferate card in here. Useful for a couple of other permanents. Runetail Kitsune Ascendant. When you have 30 more life, flip him. And the enchantment, legendary enchantment, prevent all damage that would be dealt to creatures you control. So, very handy creature there. Aven Mind Sensor, Custody Soulcaller, another recycler, melee. So multiplayer game, he gets slightly stronger. But whenever he attacks, return target creature card with converted mana cost X or less from your graveyard to the battlefield, where X is the number of players you attack with a creature this combat. So those early game creatures, especially Kami of False Hope, Custody Soulcaller can bring them back. Auriok Salvagers for those small full value artifacts. Guardian Seraph, so another creature that mitigates some damage. So if a source an opponent controls will deal damage to you, prevent 1 of that damage. Kong Ming, Sleeping Dragon. Now I know what you're thinking, but I'm sure Michiko and Kong Ming can put aside their differences and work together in this deck, so other creatures get +1/+1. Another legendary creature here, an Avacyn Guardian Angel. So she's another mitigator in that she can prevent all damage that would be dealt to another target creature this turn by sources of the color of your choice. Or her second ability, which is a very expensive 7 mana. Prevent all damage that would be dealt to target player this turn by sources of the color of your choice. So you can stop yourself from getting one-shotted. Bishop of Rebirth. Early game creatures again, a bit of a recycler there. Archon of Justice, I like Archon of Justice. Whenever it dies, exile target permanent. So this is a excellent card, especially for the strategy that I'm aiming to implement in this deck. Spelltithe Enforcer, so whenever an opponent plays a spell, they sack a permanent unless they pay 1. Adakar Valkyrie, so just a great value creature. So she can bring something back. She's got Flying and Vigilance, so she's always got her ability ready to be activated, so you can steal things from your opponents as well. Silent Sentinel, one of those early game targets for Urza's Tome, but he can bring an enchantment card from your graveyard directly back to the battlefield. Emeria Shepherd, excellent card if you can get her on the battlefield. Whenever a land enters the battlefield under your control, if it's a plains, you may return a non-land permanent from your graveyard to the battlefield. Has some synergy with an enchantment that I'm going to show after I get through these last 2 creatures, which are Angel of Deliverance, so 8 mana. Obviously going to be a really difficult thing to hardcast, but whenever it deals damage, if there are 4 more card types among cards in your graveyard, exile target creature an opponent controls. I like that ability. And Ray of Dawnbringer. So at the beginning of your upkeep, return target creature card from your graveyard to the battlefield, 9 mana. You're really going to be relying on those resurrection effects rather than a hard cast with Raya. So the instant and sorcery spells are Revoke Existence, Reprisal to deal with creatures, big creatures especially. Devouring Light does the same, Crib Swap. Now these are the Michiko Konda specials. We've got Blood of the Martyr and Civi's Valor. So, tailor-made for Michiko Konda. 3 mana instant. Until end of turn, redirect to yourself all damage dealt to any number of creatures. The source of the damage does not change. So if Michiko's on the battlefield, that's a great card to cast. And Civi's Valor. If you control a plains, tap an untapped creature you control instead of paying its mana cost. all damage that would be dealt to target creature this turn is dealt to you instead. So when Michiko's down, those 2 cards are obviously most effective. Forsake the Worldly to exile things as well. Lapse of Certainty. What have we got here? We've got the Resurrection effects. So firstly, Resurrection itself. Put a creature from your graveyard directly into play. I got them mixed up here. Breath of Life does the same thing. And Miraculous Recovery does the same thing for 5 mana, but also at instant speed and gives that creature a +1/+1 counter. So you've got some spells to dig back out those big things. This deck is really relying on passive life gain, more so than direct life gain by casting spells to give yourself that. So Beacon of Immortality, though, is one of the unique ones in this deck in that it doesn't give you life, but it actually doubles target player's life total, and it recycles itself. So after you cast it, you shuffle Beacon of Immortality back into its owner's library. So a great card to keep yourself alive while encouraging people to deal damage to you. I only have 2 board wipes here. One is Citywide Bust from the recent Ravnica set. Destroy all creatures with toughness 4 or greater. So it's kind of more of a one-sided board wipe, given that most of my creatures are going to be less than toughness 4. Rout is the other one. So I like Rout because it gives you the option of playing it at instant speed as well. So destroy all creatures can't be regenerated, so you can play it as a sorcery for 5 or play it as an instant for 7. And the last sorcery is Plea for Guidance. So this deck really is reliant on the enchantments. And Plea for Guidance is just one of those ways to fish some critical or key enchantments out of your deck at a good point in the game. So the last component of the deck are the enchantments. So I've got Griff's Boon, which is a part of the recycling theme. Island Sanctuary, an old card. This is part of the Keep Yourself Alive strategy. So during your draw phase, you may draw 1 less card from your library. And if you do so until the start of your next turn, only creatures with flying or island walk can attack you. Interesting old card that does some funny shenanigans. Spirit Loop, one of those, another passive life gain cards to pad out the life total with a creature. And what I like about Spirit Loop is that when it's put into a graveyard from play, return Spirit Loop to its owner's hand. Pursuit of Knowledge. Pursuit of Knowledge, so especially with a Grateful Apparition, this really works well. Remove 3 study counters from it, sacrifice it, and draw 7 cards. So especially if you're able to recycle Pursuit of Knowledge, that can give you some really good card advantage, especially late game. Now, Endless Horizons is the one that synergizes a lot with Emiria Shepherd, particularly. I like Endless Horizons. A lot of mono-white decks put this card in there, just because it's a great card first and foremost. But when it comes into play, search your library for any number of planes, remove them from the game, and at the beginning of your upkeep, put a card you own removed from the game with Endless Horizons into your hand. So you're basically giving yourself a planes at the start of each upkeep. If you're lucky enough to get Endless Horizons down early game, that's really going to put a game greatly in your favor by clearing out the lands and effectively giving you an extra card each turn. Seal of Cleansing, destroy target artifact or enchantment. Compulsory Rest. So it has the, quote-unquote drawback in that enchanted creature gains, sacrifice this creature, you gain 2 life. So it stops the creature from attacking or blocking, but its owner can pay that cost there and sacrifice the creature. But being able to recycle Compulsory Rest is why I've decided to put this in here. Angelic Renewal, another recycler. If any creatures are put into your graveyard from play, sacrifice it and put one of those creatures back onto the battlefield. Armored Ascension is critical finisher, one of the key cards in turning your creatures into a complete destroyer, especially with Endless Horizons. If you can get enough planes on the battlefield, you can turn your Adarkar Valkyrie into an insta-giver. If she's got lifelink as well, or she can gain you life, all the better. And on that topic, Noble Purpose. So I'm not playing a lot of creatures. I'm not playing a lot of creatures with lifelink. So Noble Purpose is kind of critical to Michiko Konda staying alive. But whenever a creature you control deals combat damage, you gain that much life. So Noble Purpose is completely critical. Mystic Barrier, Commander exclusive card. So you're basically deciding whether when the game turns into an attack left or an attack right. So keep yourself safe. While ensuring that combat and battles continue. Sphere of Safety to tax them, why not? One of the major enchantment cards, which goes really well with Michiko Konda, is Martyr's Bond. So Michiko, you know, they take something from you, she takes half back. So whenever Martyr's Bond or another non-land permanent you control is put into a graveyard from the battlefield, each opponent sacrifices a permanent that shares a card type with it. With all those self-sacrificing creatures and artifacts that can put themselves in the graveyard, that gives you some kind of a passive board wipe or a well-timed board wipe strategy as well. And the last card, the Wanderer. Love the artwork, love the costume. That is so Michiko Konda. Prevent all non-combat damage that will be dealt to you and other permanents you control. -2, exile target creature with power 4 or greater. So she comes in with 5 loyalty counters, so you can clear away a couple of creatures at the very least, but being able to bring her back is the critical thing there, or proliferate with that one proliferate creature. That's my Michiko Konda deck. I have a special game lined up to test her out, so hopefully that will be up soon and you can enjoy how that goes. But until then, you take care wherever you are in the world. Keep enjoying Magic, and until the next edition.